With the NFL schedule finally released, we'll talk about here on the Locked On NFL podcast which teams got the most favor with primetime games, the top revenge games, top primetime games, and kingmaker games. Who's getting set up to be the top dogs in the NFL at the midpoint of the season? Chris Carter, your boy Q, Friday edition, Locked On NFL podcast. Let's get into
it. You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, with my friend and co-host, your boy Q. We're of Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, but Friday, we bring it to you on the Locked On NFL podcast where we talk all things NFL. Remember, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting app and definitely on YouTube. Subscribe to this show on whatever channel that you like to listen to or watch your NFL podcasts on, and get our daily episodes Monday through Friday with all the different hosts that host the Locked On NFL podcast. We cover your team every day on all the different teams across the NFL and every other sport in the majors. Q, the NFL schedule is released, and finally, we can get away with the fake leaks, the real leaks, who's actually playing where. It comes every year. And every year I post the same reminder at the start of the week, like, hey, guys, we just got through the draft. Don't fall for the fake leak people who create these crazy Twitter accounts. And they're like, I'm real, and I think that, and I've heard that the Steelers are playing the Raiders on Mars on Christmas Eve. And I'm just like, guys, like every year they fall for it. But fortunately, we're through that now. Let's talk about some of these bigger points here, Q. Let's look at the primetime games. Just to, who's got primetime games. There are 4 teams who received primetime bids, 6 primetime bids this year. That is the Chiefs, naturally, they're the Super Bowl champions, the Chargers, the Bills, and the Cowboys. Surprisingly, not here, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Niners. You'd think you'd want to get those 3 teams up there the most, but I look back at this and I see Dallas, which is a huge market, LA, which is a huge market, Kansas City, who are the champions, and they should, and then the Bills, who have been a big attraction because of their recent success here. Is there another team that you would have swapped in if you were just to only have 4 teams that had 6 primetime games this year? Is there a team that you swapped for any of those top 4?
I would have taken the Chargers out. I mean, I just, obviously I'm here in the AFC West. I'm in Vegas covering the Raiders. So I always, see the Chargers twice a year. But I don't know, man. The Chargers seem like that team that they always have high expectations
every year.
And then something happens, right? I mean, look, they were up by a bazillion points to the Jaguars in the playoffs and then find a way to lose the game. So based off that alone, they probably should have taken one of their primetime games away. But I don't know if there's really a team out there that I would look at and say, okay, this team, deserves more primetime games. But I don't know. Maybe Cincinnati would be that team just because you expect them to be really good, make a run at things towards the end. I don't know. The Jets got a lot of love because of Aaron Rodgers. They got 5 primetime games. So I don't know if there's another team I'd slide in there, but I definitely would look at the Chargers and say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We'll take one of your games away.
How do you feel about your Raiders getting 5 primetime games? They missed the playoffs last year.
They won 6 games last year.
Right. And they didn't exactly go get a top flight quarterback or anything here. They got Jimmy G. What is it the Las Vegas market that they're just trying to appeal to? What do you think that was behind that?
I was pretty shocked, to be honest with you. I was very shocked. I actually thought the Raiders were going to get a lot of primetime games last year, and they didn't. Right. I thought it was going to be okay. Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, Josh McDaniels. Oh, man, Chandler Jones. It's going to be great. And there was a lot of expectations. Everyone thought the AFC West was going to be bananas, right? And it wasn't really the division that we all thought it was going to be. So I actually expected them to get a lot of primetime games last year. This year, I thought, okay, maybe a game, maybe 2. And instead, 5 and 4 of them are at home. It's like, wow. And then really, honestly, they play on Christmas Day. Of course, the NFL is stealing Christmas from the NBA, and they play on Christmas Day. So you can look at it and say, really, they got 6 if you want to consider, that Monday game, it's 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoff. But still, I mean, you can look at it and say, that's even a primetime game and to a certain extent. So just about 6. I'm super shocked that they got that many for a team that won 6 games a year ago.
We're gonna break some of the top games that we see up on the schedule down. There's gonna be three different types of games we talk about. There's gonna be primetime games. There's gonna be revenge/other games, whether they're revenge games, they have other interests in the game, and then they're gonna be what we call kingmaker games, early to mid season games between two teams that could decide who starts to be top dogs at one point or another. But let's start with primetime games. One primetime game I'm keeping my eye on: Bills at Bengals, Week 9, Sunday Night Football. It's kind of a rematch that never was, because the Bills and Bengals didn't get to complete their game last year with the Damar Hamlin incident, and Damar Hamlin is set to return and play football this year. And Week 9, that gives you at least 2 months time into the season on top of everything else for him to get healthy. Man, if Damar Hamlin's running out of that tunnel onto that field, on the same field where he had cardiac arrest and needed to be revived, it's going to be, I guarantee you, it'll be the most talked about thing all week long, Week 9.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And I'll say this, I'm interested to see if the Bills, if that magic is starting to run out a little bit, right? I mean, I know
agree.
that they had a lot of, emotional moments towards the end of the season, so that could have played a role in the way that they ended the season last year. But I just kind of think that they had their moment. They peaked, and they may start be coming down the other side of the mountain at this point. So I think this is a real big year for the Bills. I know that there's going to be a lot of expectations, a lot of eyes on the Bills. I just don't know if they're that team that, like last year, that was expected to make a deep run. They were going to represent in the Super Bowl, and we know that didn't shake out. So I want to see if they're able to get off to a good start, and if they're able to be that team this year, or do they take that step back?
I agree with you there. Another primetime game I have my eyes on: Jets at Chiefs, Sunday Night Football, Week 4. Aaron Rodgers versus Patrick Mahomes. This was the game that I think the NFL was waiting to hope materialize as a Super Bowl for many years, Packers, Chiefs, and it just never did, between the old gun of the NFC and the new gun of the AFC. But now that old gun has come to the AFC with one of the teams that's looking to make a rise up this year. I think it's going to be really interesting. The Jets have a really strong roster, I think, on defense and on paper. They should be a really talented team, but how will Aaron Rodgers gel with his new squad against the Super Bowl champions? That's a game I have my eyes on.
Yeah, me too. And especially because of that Jets defense, I want to see how it goes up against the Chiefs and their offense. That offense is obviously, that circus act, that high wire act, right? They can score from anywhere on the field, but the Jets have a really good defense led by Sauce Gardner, of course, and others, right? I don't want to shortchange anybody, but Quinnen Williams in the middle, Sauce outside. I like the Jets defense, and of course, Aaron Rodgers is an upgrade at the quarterback position. But you're right. Really, the Jets are going to depend. They're going to go based off of, how quickly Aaron Rodgers could gel with his young wide receivers. He's never done a good job of that. You saw they brought a lot of the older players that he's familiar with over to the Jets so he can get off to a good start. But how quickly can they get that offense clicking? That's going to let you know how this season is going to go. But that defense is definitely going to be a heavy hitter as well. And again, I really, really like it. So I want to see that game going up against the Chiefs and that high wire act that is their offense.
Ravens at Niners, Christmas night, Monday Night Football, Week 16. Two teams. You'll have Lamar Jackson, but then the question: who's going to be the Niners quarterback out? Not only out through training camp, but then throughout the season. Let's say Brock Purdy wins the starting job early on, but then he starts to struggle mid-season.
Is he even healthy?
Is he even healthy?
Who's going to be the quarterback? I mean, honestly, I don't think he's available to start the season. I mean, he just had surgery on his elbow. I don't even think he's going to start the season. I think that's probably the biggest storyline in this game is who's playing by Week 16 for the 49ers and their quarterback, because their quarterbacks in San Francisco always get injured. Right? Yeah. Jimmy G's not there anymore. I mean, I got to cover him with the Raiders, but they have all their quarterbacks get injured. I mean, look how they were down to their fourth quarterback when the season got wrapped up last year. So that's really going to be the biggest storyline in this game. Baltimore and San Francisco looks great on paper. I just want to know who the trigger man is for the 49ers.
It's a very good question, and we don't know the answer. You guys could have had Will Levis, but instead you went with Jimmy G. Inside jokes. But my last primetime game I want to hype on is because it involves our teams, the Steelers and the Raiders. They face off Week 3 Sunday Night Football in Las Vegas. The last two times these two teams played, the Raiders beat the Steelers in 2021. The Steelers beat the Raiders in 2022, but both were in Pittsburgh. One was in the final season of Ben Roethlisberger. The other was in the rookie season of Kenny Pickett. And now you're facing off in an early part of the season. It'll be the Steelers' first away game. Is that the Raiders' first home game of the season, or will that be like their? Oh,
No,
so that's
it's
gonna
the first. Yeah, it's the third week of the season, first home game. And I'll say this: even though that's going to be fun and exciting, and to host the Steelers on a Sunday night at Allegiant Stadium will be cool, I think the NFL totally blew it on this one. I think that
okay.
the Steelers and Raiders should have been playing on that Black Friday game. It just to me, and maybe it's just me, it made all the sense in the world. The two teams that they have black in their uniforms originally, not like the Cardinals, who are a team that manufacture black, not like the Jets, who are actually playing. It's the Jets and Dolphins on Black Friday. That has nothing to do with black as far as I'm concerned. But you think about it, the Raiders, they have the fans are what? From the black hole. They have the
Yeah,
black
makes
stadium.
sense.
Allegiant Stadium is all black. The Raiders wear silver and black. What do the Steelers wear? They wear yellow and gold, or gold and yellow and black. I mean, excuse me.
You're fine.
They have it. They've always had black in their uniform. So I feel like the Raiders and Steelers, matter of fact, I would love to see that game every year, just kind of flip flop. One year the Raiders host it, the next year the Steelers host it, and back and forth. That'll be their version of the Thanksgiving Day when the Cowboys and the Lions always get to play. But well, the NFL didn't think that I was a genius, so they said, no, never mind. We're going to have the Jets and the Dolphins play on Black Friday. Again, has nothing to do with Black Friday, but that's just me.
I like Steelers at Raiders. I've also, from what I've heard, this is now one of the hotter tickets of the year. Tickets are already like the cheapest tickets you can get are like $300 for that right now. And I think it's rising because the Steelers have such a strong presence in the West. It's crazy. You go to Arizona. I've been to Steelers Cardinals games in Arizona, and there are like twice as many Steelers fans as Cardinals fans. Niners games, Steelers fans show up for that. In different parts of the country, this will be the first time the Steelers have played in Las Vegas. I personally know a lot of Steelers fans that live in Las Vegas, just fans that have moved there throughout the years. I'll be very intrigued to see what that crowd is like in that brand new stadium, and especially, with the tone of the Raiders this year. If they start off hot, what's the excitement for the team? But if they start off slipping, they got Jimmy G at quarterback. They still need to make other moves. What's going to be the tone for that team? So week 3 Sunday Night Football, a really interesting primetime game. But Q, I hear you. Black Friday would have been an interesting thing, but hey, I'm a guy that likes to have my holidays, so I'm happy they didn't do that.
Maybe next year. Maybe they'll do it next year.
Maybe next year. Maybe they hear this podcast and think differently. We got to get to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about revenge games, because that's always a factor in schedules that are going to be interesting. But first, before we do any of that, I want to talk to you guys about Built Bar, the #1 protein bar in America. If you're looking for a tasty treat that's also healthy for you, you're in luck, because Built Bar is the answer for you. Built Bar is a protein bar that comes wrapped in 100% chocolate. It's covered in chocolate, but on the inside, you get all these different flavors that can range from different things like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, double chocolate brownie, brownie batter. So many different flavors, and they come in all different sizes. But you always get the same sort of calorie intake. You're only getting 130 calories. You're only getting 4 grams of sugar, but you're fitting 17 grams of protein in, so that you're getting all the gains of the protein that you want, and all the taste from all the flavors and chocolate that you want, but none of the bad stuff in the calories or the sugar, so that you can keep going throughout your day and stay right on your diet. And you don't have to go to built.com anymore just to order them. You can go right to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick it up. Right now, go to the pharmacy section of your Walmart, and you can find 4-bar boxes of cookies and cream, double chocolate and coconut puffs, or you go to Sam's Club, find 13-bar boxes with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. Trust me, when you try Built Bar, you'll be thanking me later, because you'll be trying Built Bar, the best protein bar in America. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast, the Friday edition with Chris Carter and your boy Q. Q, let's talk about some key revenge games, because that is always a big talking point every year. Now, one key revenge game that I think everyone's going to have their eye on: Week 17, 425, Chiefs at Bengals. They're going to be duking it out. These are the two teams that have been in the AFC Championship game. 2 years ago, the Bengals beat the Chiefs. Last year, the Chiefs beat the Bengals, both by very tight margins. No doubt this will have lots of playoff implications, could be the deciding factor in a 1-seed race at the end of the season there. I'm intrigued to see how this one plays out and where these two teams are at the end of the year.
Well, I just suggest that the Cincinnati mayor don't say anything about this game, right? Just let this game be played without talking. And
didn't he already say something about this game?
I don't know. I hope not, man. I mean,
I saw him and Orlando Brown. Him and Orlando Brown, the tackle they got from the
That's
Chiefs
right.
already
Yep.
did some. I didn't watch it. I just saw that they did a video about that, and I was just like,
Yeah.
man, didn't you learn your lesson already?
Yeah, there's no reason for that. This is going to be a good game, though. I'm excited about the game itself. You know, the game that's played on the field, not the shenanigans and all the trash talking off the field by people that have no impact in the game, like the mayor of Cincinnati. I think he's way out of pocket, but that's another conversation. Just these two teams, you know, these are two of the best teams in the AFC, and you know that with these young quarterbacks in Burrow and Mahomes, they're going to be duking it out for years to come. So anytime that they square up, as long as Cincinnati is able to keep that team for the most part intact, it's always going to be a really good game. So, yeah, this will be an exciting one, except for we won't see it till the very end of the season. I thought it was going to be the Thursday night game to start the season, but instead it's just about ending the season.
Yeah, would have been a heck of a good one. But
Yep.
NFL saving one of the best matchups for last. Let's talk about an early one here. Week 5, Cowboys at Niners. The 49ers have eliminated the Cowboys from the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. And in close, embarrassing fashion, you had the tackle of Ezekiel Elliott that was just like what was that kind of play? The year before, Dak Prescott trying to get the snap off, but they didn't put the ball down right, and they lost that way. The Cowboys and the Niners have been a historic rivalry. You think of the catch with Dwight Clark back in the 80s. You think of some of the great showdowns between Troy Aikman and Steve Young in the 90s and the history that they have. Now you have the 49ers, like you said, at this point of the season, week 5, will Brock Purdy be available? Will it be Trey Lance? Who will have won the quarterback spot? And what will the Cowboys be like this year? Because to me, the Cowboys are a team that they're a lot like the Chargers of late. Now, they certainly have Super Bowl success in their past, but since those 90s Super Bowls, they've been another team that every year people say this is their year. This is when they're coming up strong. This is when they're going to make their big move. And then whatever happens, they fall flat at some point and they mess it up. I really look at this as an opportunity for them to make a statement against the team that's been knocking them out of the playoffs and say, not this year. We got our stuff together.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what San Francisco looks like. I really am. I mean, I feel like that, in 2022, they were able to roll out whatever quarterback they wanted to, and it worked. I don't think you can consistently do that. So I think that they've got to find a guy and stick with them and get some consistency out of him. I think on the other side, the Cowboys have a really good secondary, and their defense was really good last year as well. So that Cowboys defense might really be able to help them. And hopefully for their sake, Dak Prescott doesn't throw as many interceptions as he did in 2022, and he stays healthier than he did in 2022. So this could end up shaping up to be a really good game. Could be a big-time revenge game for the Cowboys, or it could be another dud for the Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers end up winning it. But anytime San Francisco and Dallas gets together, it's always a good game. So this will definitely be a good one. You said this is a week 5 one, right?
Yeah, week 5 game.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I got a week 4 game here, Thursday Night Football too.
What you doing? Going backwards, man? You started at 17, now you're at 5 and 4.
And we're going to pick it back up and go to the future. It's back to the future in a minute here. Get out of here with that. But Lions at Packers. Now, if you remember at the end of last season, the Packers had a chance to make the playoffs, and the Lions took it away from them. They beat them and ended the Aaron Rodgers era with the Green Bay Packers. Now is the Jordan Love era. And talking about Jordan Love, the Packers got 5 primetime games that you tied with the second most among the groups out there right now. So the Packers getting a little bit of love, even with Jordan Love being the quarterback there. But this being one of them, they're playing the Lions. Detroit, they could be some disruptors early on because the NFC North, there's going to be a lot of questions about the Vikings. Can they have the kind of fortune that they had during the season last year? Who will the Packers be top dogs? I think the Packers may be in for a rough year as they adjust to life without Aaron Rodgers. This could be a prime chance for the Lions to make their claim for the NFC North and Dan Campbell to bite all the kneecaps that he wants. He'll get that chance on the opening night, Thursday Night Football, with the first game of the season against the Chiefs. But looking at this early schedule that the Lions have, they start at the Chiefs, then they get Geno Smith and the Seahawks, then the Falcons, which not too excited about that one. But then at the Packers, they could have a situation where if they can steal a couple, two of those first 3 games, they'd have a chance to be 3-1 in their first 4 games. And if they beat the Green Bay Packers, everyone's going to be talking about they could be the new kings of the NFC North.
I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I really can't. I know that Detroit did some really good things in 2022.
You don't believe in Man Campbell?
No, you've got to show me. You've got to show me, man. I mean, look, you could have a really good season and then fall off a cliff the next season. So I just don't believe that Lions team is, this team that, like you said, could end up running the NFC North. And I apologize to all Lions fans. This could be a Cincinnati Bengals situation where I didn't believe in them until I seen it, up close and personal for myself. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that they're really as good as everybody thinks. I think that they had a nice little run in 2022. I've got to see what they do this year. So I don't really think that they're going to be that good of a team this year. With that being said, I'm not sure what Green Bay is going to look like either, because as you mentioned, Jordan Love, it's the Jordan Love era, and it's never going to be like a smooth transition where it's just like, oh, yeah, no problem. You just went from a Hall of Famer to Jordan Love, and he's going to pick it up where Aaron Rodgers left off, and there'll be no growing pains. So I think that it'll be a struggle for both teams, but I'm not buying the Lions until I see it. At least you got to show me another season before I'm all in on that.
Like I said, I promise we go back to the future. So we jump from week 4 to week 11 here. Eagles at Chiefs, maybe the biggest revenge game of them all, the Super Bowl rematch, Monday Night Football in Kansas City. Q, not much needs to be said about this. This is going to be, I think, a big dogfight. If both of these teams are just as good as they were last year, everyone's going to be tuned in for this.
Well, good luck, Eagles. Good luck. And what I mean by that is that's coming off the Chiefs bye week. And it's in Kansas City. Andy Reid, as you very well know, and I know there's only been a couple teams that have really knocked him off coming off the bye week, and I know the Steelers were able to do it once, but I'll tell you, man, when I was looking at the Raiders schedule, I was like, please don't let the Raiders play the Chiefs coming off the bye. Please don't let the Raiders be playing the Chiefs, because it seems like they always do, right? And they don't play them this year coming off the bye. The Eagles do. But guess who plays them the very next week? The Raiders in week 12. So the Eagles were like the buffer, right? They were the buffer team. So good luck to Philly. I think Philly's going to be a really good team this year. I know they lost a lot of players by way of free agency. And of course they lost a couple coaches, but man, that is going to be such a hard game to go into Arrowhead after the Chiefs are coming off their bye and think you're going to win that game. So good luck to you, Philly. But more likely after that game is all said and done, we're going to be talking about a Chiefs victory.
Look at you just kind of sealing their fate.
My shot, man. I'm calling my shot.
Look at you talking about sealing their fate before they even get the chance. But guess who also has a bye before that game? The Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't care.
He said, I don't care.
They don't have Andy Reid, brother.
They used to back in the day.
Notice how you said used to.
That right, but this will be a really interesting period for the Eagles, because now also everyone's going to be hunting for them. They're the NFC champions. Everyone's going to have the bullseye on them. How about this stretch for the Eagles right here? They have on November 5th, they'll be at home against the Cowboys, then they get their bye. Then they're on the road against the Chiefs, back home against the Bills, then they're home against the Niners, then they're on the road against the Cowboys. So you get Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Niners all throughout November going into early December. That could be a huge chance for them to assert we are still the top dogs of the NFC.
Or that could be a huge chance for them to take a dump, man. That could be a really bad, you know what I'm saying? Like, that could be a really bad month for them if things go wrong, right? I mean, they could be sitting in a really good spot, and then all of a sudden, just like, womp, 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 the bottom falls out of it. Because, man, that's a hell of a murderer's row right there. And again, we don't know what these teams look like, but we're just basing it off what we saw last. That's a hell of a stretch right there, man. So if Philly gets through it strong, then yeah, they could be out there saying how dominant they are. But if they don't, they fall and lose, 3 out of 5 of those games or 4 out of those 5 games, where are they going to be sitting in the division, right? In the division and also just in the NFC in general, man, that could be a bad day and bad situation for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely. Last game here, not a revenge game, but another game that we put a note on. Texans at Panthers, week 8, 1 o'clock. You think, who cares about that game? Well, that's going to be the chance for the number 1 quarterback to face the number 2 quarterback in the NFL draft, CJ Stroud and the Texans, Bryce Young and the Panthers. Interesting matchup for both of these teams to see. And especially by week 8, they'll have their feet under them a little bit as rookies, where it'll be a good progress report on both of their status with their new teams.
No, it really will, right? I mean, think about it. All the quarterbacks that were taken early in the draft, I mean, you had Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. 3 out of the 4 picks were all quarterbacks. We know all those quarterbacks aren't going to be good, right? I mean, just the history tells us all those quarterbacks aren't going to be good. So is Bryce Young going to be the guy that they expected him to be when Carolina took him number 1? Is CJ Stroud going to be that guy for Houston, even though it was reported and rumored all the way up until the actual pick happened, that he wasn't going to go number 2 and he was going to have some big time free fall? Or is it going to be Anthony Richardson, who's only got 13 games of college starts under his belt? Is he going to be the slow starter? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Or is he going to be not the good quarterback? Like, all 3 of those quarterbacks aren't going to be great quarterbacks. Like, I guarantee that, just because, again, numbers and history tells us that's not going to happen. So, by week 8, CJ Stroud versus Bryce Young, that could be real juicy material, right? Especially if both of those quarterbacks get off to a decent start with their respective teams. We don't believe either one of those teams is going to be fantastic. But if you start to see some light with what DeMeco Ryans has going on in Houston, with CJ Stroud, and then what Frank Reich has going on in with the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young, that's a really fun matchup, man. That's definitely one I'm paying attention to.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about what I call kingmaker games, early to mid-season games that I think could tell the direction of certain wins in the NFL. We'll get into those matchups in just a minute here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Chris Carter and your boy Q. We'll be right back. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, Chris Carter, your boy Q, breaking it down here. Q, I'm going to go what I'm going to call kingmaker games here. Now, These are games early on or by mid-season between some interesting teams that I think that could determine the way that this season goes in certain directions. So, first one, leading off with a mid-season game here. Week 8, Bengals at Niners, the 2 teams that lost the conference championship games. Where will the Niners be by then? Where will the Bengals be by then? Whereas the Bengals are in a different kind of position than the Niners. It's funny. The Niners have their great defense that was number 1 in both yards and points. They're still going to be there. They've added Javon Hargrave. They're going to be a tough out all season long, and that's going to be a very interesting matchup. But on the flips, but they at the same time, they're going to have a question at quarterback. What's going on there? The Bengals, though, on the flip side, of course, still have Joe Burrow and their quarterback, but they've got major changes on their defense with both their safeties being gone. And Lou Anarumo is going to have to figure out how to reconfigure that defense. This could be 2 teams with different strengths and weaknesses that could be a very intriguing matchup in the middle part of the season. And a winner might be a sign about who's kind of stepping up in their conference a bit more.
And I feel like Cincinnati's probably going to have the edge in this one, again, just because I got to keep going back to, the same old song and dance when it comes to San Francisco, and that's the quarterback, man. That's the biggest question mark. They have everything that you mentioned, but they have a big question mark at quarterback, and I don't know who it's going to be. Trey Lance hasn't shown that he could stay healthy at all so far in his NFL career. Brock Purdy just had surgery on his elbow. Sam Darnold is there, and we all know who Sam Darnold is. So I just feel like Cincinnati is probably going to be the better team at this stage of the game. And I think San Francisco's defense is going to be good, but I think Cincinnati will just have too much firepower in this one. But it should be a very intriguing game. I just think it's one that I would lean towards Cincinnati, at least right now.
I hear you on that. Let's flip to a different game here in a division rivalry, and that's Cowboys and Eagles, a classic matchup. Q, you were in the Cowboys area for a long time. You got to see what that atmosphere was like. I went to college at Cheney University, the first HBCU, and it was out in the Philadelphia area. And as a guy who grew up from Pittsburgh, there was nothing I preferred. If there was not a Steelers game on, if the Cowboys and Eagles were on, I had to find the nearest lounge, the nearest place where I knew the most Eagles fans were going to congregate, because Cowboys fans would show up there and it would just be an all-out war between those fans. If there are 2 franchises that hate each other that's in the top 5 as far as rivalries and hatred and which fans don't like each other the most, it is Cowboys and Eagles. It gets nasty every time. Week 9, I love it. But the other part of this is, I truly think this is the Cowboys, their chance to kind of assert, like, hey, we're ready to make the step up this year. Dak's going to be healthy. You got to have everything in line. And if the Eagles want to hold on to the NFC East, this will be the first time they meet up. It'll be in Philly for a 4:25 game Eastern Standard Time. I think that could be a kingmaker game where if the Cowboys pull off the upset, it'll be a message to the entire NFC. Hey, this ain't just going to go like it did last year.
No, it could. And the thing about it is the Super Bowl hangover is real, too. For teams that lose the Super Bowl, there's a real deal thing to that. It's hard for teams to kind of get back on that horse and ride it. So that's one of the areas that I'm looking at for the Eagles just from the jump of the season, is how do they get back into the arena and start making it happen after losing the Super Bowl, after losing multiple coaches, after losing multiple players by way of free agency. I know they picked up Jalen Carter. I know they picked up Nolan Smith. I know they got Keely Ringo. I mean, they got everybody from Georgia. I get that in the draft, but I mean, that's going to be tough, man. It really is. And I think that the Cowboys are in a prime position to go into Philadelphia and steal this game because, again, the Eagles are still kind of finding their way, finding their legs, even though it's later in the season. Would you say week 9? I mean, that's that's kind of a good measuring stick and giving them some time to get their sea legs under them. But at the end of the day, man, I just think that Super Bowl hangover is real, and I think Philadelphia is going to feel it for the majority of the season next year.
Another matchup that I think will be really interesting is going to come the first week of the season. And this could tell the story of two division rivals. And that's the Bills and the Jets. The Bills week 1 go to the Jets. It's going to be Monday Night Football on September 11th. Obvious implications for the city of New York there with two New York teams. But this is going to be huge because the Bills, they've been the top dogs of the AFC East since the Patriots fell off when Tom Brady left. But that's only been 3 years.
Right.
So this isn't like the Patriots who dominated that division for basically 2 whole decades. And the Jets now have Aaron Rodgers along with a team that has stacked talent on the defensive side of the ball. They've added some playmakers for Aaron Rodgers to use. This could be a telltale sign early part in the season where if the Jets pull off an upset over the Bills even though they're the home team here, it could be the sign that be like, hey, this division ain't just going to go like it did the last few years. There's a new sheriff in town. But do you see that being the case here, or do the Bills come in? You talked about they're losing their magic. Their window for this crew of Bills, and not that Josh Allen will never have another window again, but with this crew that they've built around Josh Allen, it is running out of time.
Yeah, no, it really is. And the Jets have an opportunity in this game to make that statement, as you said. Start the season off with a statement saying, yeah, Aaron Rodgers was worth all the trouble. All the weeks that you guys talked about him on the podcast, this thing hasn't got done yet. What are the Jets doing? They're taking too long. This is dragging on. Yeah, they have an opportunity to show, this was worth it because look what he's able to help us do, along with that defense and have that powerful offense with a really good quarterback behind center. Then that's, it was worth all the trouble. So it's going to be interesting. I really want to see, especially early in the season, how do the Bills react? How do they get into the season? Again, is that window still wide open, or is it starting to shut? Is it starting to, close up a little bit like I think it is going to? And the start of the season is going to be very important for them, right? They got that game against the Jets, and then the Raiders travel to Buffalo for week 2. So that should be an interesting little stretch that they have. But this one obviously is a big time game, one that everybody's going to be paying attention to on Monday Night Football. And of course, it's the Aaron Rodgers era now in New York with the Jets. So I think that the Jets have a great opportunity to make a statement, and the Bills have an opportunity to make a statement as well and say, hey, by the way, don't forget about us. We're still here.
Absolutely. Last kingmaker game here, week 12, another division matchup here. And I'm going to put Steelers Bengals on the list because the Steelers have made a lot of really good moves in the draft. They've been one of the highest grades of the draft as far as their aggressiveness to get an extra pick, how they've been able to maneuver. They've fortified the offensive line to the draft and free agency. They're hoping to have TJ Watt healthy for the whole year this time around. The Steelers and Bengals split last year, and there's some questions there. Is the AFC North going to be the most contentious division this year? You've got the Ravens who've re-signed Lamar Jackson, brought in Odell Beckham Jr., drafted Zay Flowers. What's that offense going to be like with a new offensive coordinator? You got the Browns with Deshaun Watson with a full year under his belt. What's he going to be like? Then, of course, the Bengals who've been the division winners for 2 straight years. But, of course, the Steelers who are always just kind of in the running. If they're not the top dogs, they're fighting for a playoff spot. And this is going to be Kenny Pickett's second year where there's the question, does he take the step up with all the investments they've made around him this year? I think week 12, the first time that they'll play the Bengals this season, that could be a time where we see how far has this young Steelers team come, and are the Bengals still playing like the top dogs of their division for a 3rd year in a row?
Yeah, that's my big question is when it comes to Kenny Pickett and the Steelers, does he take that next step, and how does he take that next step? And I know that they've added some weapons around him now to make it a little bit more comfortable than it was his rookie year. But, how does he take to that coaching? How does he take to the weapons around him? Does he continue to mature? I think he will. I like him as a quarterback, but we just have to see it, right? I mean, you just don't know until you get to see it. He had moments in his rookie year where I thought he was really good, and I thought he had moments in his rookie year where he's like, okay, he's a rookie, right? He's going to make some rookie mistakes. So I'm interested to see how he takes that next step. And, of course, if they can knock off the Bengals or give them a run for their money and get them a little concerned, I think that'll go a long way in showing that, this no doubt this young Kenny Pickett is definitely the franchise quarterback for the Steelers moving forward.
Lots of games to look at. What's your favorite game on the NFL schedule? Let us know on the Locked On NFL podcast, either on the comment section on YouTube or hit us up at Carter Critiques, at your boy Q254 on Twitter. If we missed a game about your favorite team that we should be keeping an eye on. But this is a great, I think this is always a great time of the year. Everyone finally sees where the games are. If you're a fan of a team and you live away from the city of your favorite team, this is your chance to finally book the tickets to go to the place that you want to go to see your favorite team, whether that's in their city or on the road somewhere. Lots of things to talk about here. Q, always great to do the show with you. Rookie camps start up this weekend for a lot of teams. We'll see how that plays out, and then next week we'll be getting you ready for OTAs and everything as those start those start up as well in a couple weeks. Q, let people know can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
I don't have any idea. I don't know where you can find me. You can find me in the club. Isn't that what they said? No, just kidding. At your boy Q254 on Twitter. That's where you can find me. I put out a link to everything. Locked On Raiders, Locked On Bets, Locked On NFL. The whole shebang, man. Right there on Twitter. It's pretty easy to get me. At your boy Q254. Matter of fact, right now my profile picture is my young baseball picture from senior minors when I was a young pup. And my first day of baseball, I went 4 for 4 and I stole 6 bases, scored 4 runs because I thought I was Ricky Henderson, a young Ricky. So that's my profile picture. So then you found me at your boy Q254, a young Hendo in that picture. How about that? What about you?
A young Hendo. My gosh, I'm looking right at this. Oh my goodness.
That's my dog.
Look at that. That is
right.
Wild, man. Wow. Back in the day. Anyways, I'm Chris Carter, where you can't find my Little League photo on my Twitter profile. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can also find my show just like you find Q Show and this show, Locked On Steelers, just like you find Locked On Raiders and Locked On NFL on your favorite podcasting app on YouTube. Subscribe to all of our channels to get all of our great content. You can also read my work from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I cover all things Pitt athletics there and do lots of shows for them as well. Get all of our stuff here out there. Thanks again for checking in on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Back Monday with Kevin Ostreicher, who's going to be recapping things from the weekend, getting you ready for another week of football and getting you ready for what's coming up with OTAs just around the corner. And then we will see you next Friday after another week in the life here in the NFL. See you here right on the Locked On NFL podcast.